Hi, welcome to the Facebook Live edition of The Print on the Indus Water Treaty and the questions that you want to send us and whatever other queries that you are having concerning the treaty, what happens to the water sharing, whether we are stopping water sharing with Pakistan, and all other general questions around it, and also the technicalities and the legalities around it. Now, the general questions that we are sort of getting when on this Indus Water Treaty is the fact that what happens to the treaty. Now, to put it simply, nothing happens to the treaty as such. The treaty remains very much as it used to be with all its terms and provisions. The Indian government is also not walking out of the treaty, as some people are telling me, and neither is Pakistan walking out. What Minister Gadkari had stated yesterday when he tweeted about the Indus Water Treaty, he just meant that India will now be claiming its own share of water that it used to, that used to flow to Pakistan from the eastern rivers. Now, let's just understand the treaty. Now, as per the terms of the treaty, the rivers are divided into eastern rivers and western rivers. India has complete right to use the eastern rivers, which it was not using all this while, and it was letting the water flow to Pakistan. Now, why the Indian government did that since the treaty came into being is something that the government can answer. However, now is the decision has come up that we will be building dams on those, those eastern rivers, and we will claim the share that is ours. And the treaty, for your information, came into being in 1960. And since then, both countries have been honoring the treaty. Whenever there had been any kind of issues in terms of stopping the treaty, in terms of walking out or creating some dam, stoppage of water, it has always been sorted out with legal proceedings. The treaty was done by the World Bank. They were the facilitators, and it was done so that both countries do not, kind of fight over sharing of the waters. Now, we have one question coming up as to what if India is in violation of laws by walking out of the treaty. Now, again, we are not walking out of the treaty, so there is no violation of law out here. We are legally demanding what is our own. We are taking our own share of water that is meant for our own use that we can share with our states like Jammu and Kashmir, Haryana, and Punjab. So I've got a question from Mr. Udit Grewal. He says, will China not stop flowing of Brahmaputra in India if we do this? Now, if we are taking into consideration the Indus Water Treaty that solely governs the sharing of the river waters, the eastern and the western rivers, then let me tell you that China is not a part of the Indus Water Treaty. Although, yes, it is clear that it originates from China. How do you think Pakistan retaliate in this case? Well, to be frank, and the honest answer is they cannot retaliate because we are not doing nothing illegal and we are following the treaty provisions. The treaty completely gives us the provision to use the water that we want to use from the eastern rivers, which is why if you see yesterday when Minister Gadkari tweeted it out, there has not been that kind of an outrage or reaction from the Pakistan side because they know that we are within the treaty provisions and within the legalities of it. So there's another interesting question that has come up. How much water are we using according to the treaty? Now, that's a good question. Let us just start using the water. But as per the treaty, 80% of the water sharing is that is done through this eastern and western rivers. Now, how we will be sharing it, that will happen when we build the 3 projects that, again, Mr. Gadkari had yesterday tweeted, the Shahpur Kandli and the Aj Dam, which will also have another outlet with which we can share the water, a link with Satluj and Beas. So it seems that, questions are pouring in. We've got another question from Mr. Krish, Mr. Ramakrishnan, what would China do with the surplus water if they stop the flow to India? I do not think China will do anything because they are not party to the treaty until and unless they make it a diplomatic issue and take it up separately. There's a question from Mr. Basu who says that just like the MFN status being revoked, will not honoring water treaty really create any difference? Well, Mr. Basu, to answer your question, what we are doing right now is our rightful claim. However, this definitely sends out a signal to Pakistan that we are now going to take strict measures. We will follow the measures that we were not following, and after the deadly Pulwama attacks, India will not leave any stone unturned in terms of sending out strong signals. So, like MFN, this is also a signal that we are giving to India. However, there is small little difference. With MFN, that was a trade status that India had granted to Pakistan. However, that does not mean that we will just stop doing trade with them. In the same manner, under the Indus Water Treaty, we are not stopping the distribution of water. The water will go to them, just that we are claiming our own that we were not using or not collecting for our own use. I think we have another question from Mr. Deepayan Dasgupta. Will Pakistan take any legal course? That's an interesting question. I think I've answered that. They will not be taking any legal course, not at least under the Indus Water Treaty. However, they are free to take their own sovereign decisions, which they can take. Having said that, in terms of legal recourse, they cannot take any action. We are neither in violation of the Indus Water Treaty, nor are we in violation of the Vienna Convention. We have another interesting question as to when will these dams be coming up and how soon we can stop sharing the water with them. So I think we all know that these are huge projects. These are mega projects. It will take at least 5 to 8 years, depends. I mean, the government has now taken a decision to expedite them. So maybe in the next 5 to 8 years, these dams will be coming up. We will be collecting the water that is rightfully ours. There's another question as to how, if India can use the western river waters as well. That's another interesting question. Yes, we can use the water from the western rivers, which is your Jhelum, Chenab, and Indus, but we can only use them for non-consumptive needs. That's what the Indus Water Treaty tells us. Now, if we look at the history of the Indus Water Treaty, that came into being in 1960. That is because immediately after partition in 1948, India had cut off some of the supply of water in some canals that went to Pakistan. But then it restored again, that was hampering their villages in 1951. That is when the World Bank stepped in, and in 1960, both India and Pakistan signed this agreement. We have another question in terms of the fact that whether this will be in violation of the World Bank rules. Well, no, this will not be in violation of the World Bank rules, because the World Bank treaty, the World Bank was an interlocutor in the treaty, and as per the treaty, we can claim what is rightfully ours, which is the water from the eastern rivers. Eastern rivers again, the Sutlej, the Beas, and the